Morning, everyone. Good to have you all here. Um, as you guys are coming in, let me set some context here. Marion, were you there at our webinar last month when we talked to Ali?
I was not, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry, I missed that one. I'm at all the others.
But the one big thing she talked about was I mean it got asked in a lot of different ways. It got asked as what's her pet peeve when it comes to landscapers. Why is the why what's the number one reason she would fire someone? What does she wish the industry would do better? Lot of different forms. The same question got asked. To folks who are just entering, we are talking about the webinar we did last month with Ali Brilliant, um, senior property manager at Colliers International. And she said, communication. I wish communication was tight, was, it felt like a partnership. It felt like you were part of my team. And so it felt natural that the next conversation we do is on that topic. And it just happened to happen that, you and I were talking about it, like what we should talk about, and you just brought this up as the big thing that you guys focus on.
Oh, no, that's awesome that it kind of flowed out of that the previous webinar and into this one. And like 100% what we preach at Level Green, right, is we're almost never gonna get fired because of a quality issue. Right? Like we could not cut the grass for, weeks on end. And we could probably, I mean, at some point, yeah, they'll probably, but like we could probably get away with it as long as we're communicating really well with that client, right? Taking care of them, answering the phone calls, explaining what's going on. Like the communication, you're going to get a lot of grace from your customer on it if you have really good communications. That's the key to it, not frankly, not the quality in the field to some extent.
So true, so true. What we were speaking to one of our bigger customers, hundreds of account managers, and they did a survey of the reason customers churned, and they went back in like years of history, and this was by far the biggest reason. Like pricing wasn't even there, and neither was quality.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you have good communication, you probably have a good relationship with your client, right? And yeah, that solves so many issues, right? So.
100%. So that's what we'll talk about today, folks, how to win client trust with proactive communication. The idea is to get into process. It's a how webinar, how it's done. And so if you follow a process or you've got question to ask Marion how his process would apply to your company, go for it. I am a steward for you here. I'm going to make the best guess when it comes to asking questions to Marion. But really, I need your help. That chat box in the toolbar, in the Zoom toolbar, is there for you. The Q&A is a better way to do it so that I can keep track of questions we have answered here. And a few housekeeping items before we get into it. This is for folks who do landscape maintenance, snow removal, lawn care. Sort of useful if you're doing design build, definitely useful if you're doing enhancement projects. For the next 60 minutes, let's keep our phones on the side, emails on the side, focus on what's going on here. And we're going to talk about communication, issues that can make or break companies, how the best companies in the US, including Level Green Landscaping, are solving those challenges, and how to replicate this process if you feel this can help you. Um, I wanna apologize for the unusually bright background I have here, and I'm like weirdly bright right now. But something is going on with lighting, and we can't figure it out. But I guess you can still make it work.
You match the vest that I have on. So there you go.
And the level green vibe up. Marion, how long back was this photo taken? Man, you look really young.
Oh yeah, I was a baby. That was like 8 years ago, probably. So yeah.
And were you just getting started in landscaping back then?
Yeah, I think yeah. Yeah, I started at Level Green 8 years ago, and this is probably first year or two on the job. I may have been a business developer at this point, so this might have been a year in or so. Yeah.
Very nice. And measuring wheel, right? That's how you got prices out.
Yeah, we have not broken one of those out in quite a while, thanks to you guys. So
Good stuff. Good stuff. So before that, like tell us about your college, landscaping, business development, and what other things you've done at Level Green.
yeah. So I mean, full transparency is that I work at Level Green because my father's the one of the co-founders and owner of it. So kind of is the family business, but I never planned to get into landscaping at all. And actually, like in my youth, I did my best to find other jobs so I didn't have to work for Level Green over the summer out in the hot summer days in DC. But yeah, so I went to school actually for aviation management and worked in aviation for a year or two after graduating. But at that time, Level Green was growing a lot, and I saw a lot of potential in it and was interested in business. So ended up coming back to Level Green, yeah, 8 years ago, kind of a few years after graduation. Went to Level Green, helped me go to school, so I got my MBA with them and kind of worked my way up through Level Green. Started in our manager associate program, became an operations manager, did business development for a few years, did account management for a few years, did branch management for a few years, and then now I'm in my role as director of technology. So I manage our tech stack, which is our business management system mainly, and then kind of the other systems technology systems we use on a day-to-day basis, SiteRecon being kind of one of those key pillars. And then also help though with our hardware kind of goals and where we're going there. So I'm involved in kind of our autonomous mower experimentation and kind of a little bit on the electric side and stuff like that.
Very cool. How would you describe what Level Green does?
Yeah, we are we're full commercial, so but we're a full commercial landscape maintenance company. So our bread and butter is landscape management, landscape maintenance. We obviously will take on, smaller scale construction jobs for clients that we, already work with and have a great relationship with. Obviously, do a lot of enhancements, seasonal color, and snow removal, but that all is driven out of our landscape maintenance work and the relationships we're building because we're on our client sites on a week in, week out basis. So anything we sell over landscape maintenance is because of the relationship that we built on that.
Very nice. And then how are you situated across the DC market?
Yeah, so we service the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Maryland suburbs up to Baltimore and Baltimore suburbs. So kind of a we have 6 branches that kind of service that whole geographic location with a corporate kind of structure that centralizes things. And it's difficult. And as we've grown, right, even in the 8 years I've been there, I think when I started, we had 3 branches, right, and we would come together almost on a weekly basis. All the account managers knew each other, talked to each other. And as we've grown, right, that becomes a lot harder. And that's, I think, one of the things that we'll talk about here is, managing consistency across a larger organization becomes hard, especially when there's not the interpersonal relationships among employees. So kind of finding something that helps standardize processes as we get bigger and we want to continue to grow becomes even more important.
Understood. So 3 branches, then how many branches now? How many properties?
Yeah, so 3 branches, then we have 6 branches now that again stretch from basically Baltimore down into the Northern Virginia suburbs. Um, and we service I think the number's over 1,200 sites for contracted landscape management.
Very cool. And then when you take those 1,200 sites, how do you break them down across your account management team and your branches?
Yeah, we try and balance it out, but it's hard. I mean, we generally look at, the first thing we look at, right, is how are those 1,200 properties split up via like companies, and then even going deeper one step further from companies, it's like who's the primary contact or the property manager for it, right? Because we may have a company that we work with, right? But that company may employ 10 property managers. So we try and centralize it as much as we can where, you limit the points of contacts, right? No one wants 10 points of contact for one company, right? But that's not always possible on our end, right? Because if we have a job, we can work with a company that has a job we manage in Baltimore, but also has a job in Northern Virginia. There's no way the same account manager can manage that site, right? It's not feasible. It's way too big an area to cover. And they would be working across branches. So that's kind of the problem we run into. So we try and centralize work where like one account manager has all the properties for one company in their portfolio if they can. Um, so again, we try and minimize points of contact as much as possible, but that's not always feasible. And that's again where like standardizing systems and communications and processes comes into play so that even if there is one property manager that has, a property with us in Northern Virginia and a property in Baltimore, they're getting the same level green experience across those two properties, right? You know, uh, you go into, a Chick-fil-A, right? And you have the same experience regardless, generally regardless of which Chick-fil-A, sure, there are small differences, but you know what to expect. And that's what we need to try and do in our landscape maintenance business. That's harder on our end. It feels like we have a lot more variables, right, that we're playing with than a Chick-fil-A per se. And the product's a little bit different. And there's a lot more personality, I think, right, involved in landscaping than there is in delivering chicken tenders. But as much as we can, that's what we aim to do.
Very nice. So when you think about client experience, standardization is definitely a piece of it. Making sure that the communication is streamlined. How else um, do you define this client experience for you guys at Level Green?
Yeah, I mean, you had it kind of in that first slide there. The word that we preach to all of our account managers that kind of try and pound in is proactivity. We want to be on our front foot, not our back foot, right? So we want to be bringing things to the customer, not responding and not have them responding. And we feel, and I'm sure your conversation with Allie, like, I'm sure I'm just echoing exactly what she said, right? But our feeling now is property managers are managing more now than they have like ever, right? And like on a scale that is like we're talking two, three times more than they managed even 20 years ago, right? The number of properties they have under them, and the size of the properties they have under them, it can be crazy, right? Like you can have, a retail property manager managing 20 sites. There's no
Mm.
way that they are on top of those. There's no way they're visiting those 20 sites on a weekly, even maybe a monthly basis, right? Um, so the proactivity part is like we need to be the ones bringing things to their attention, letting them know what's going on, because they're not going to be out there, right? And then if they are out there and see it, like, and see that there's a problem in the landscape, right? Um, they're probably going to be pretty upset about that, right? Because again, they haven't been there for a month, and they're going to think that that problem has existed for since they last visited it. The other thing is like because they're so busy, if you create a problem in the landscape, like that is a huge headache for them, right? Like they have so much going on and on their plate, right? Like the last thing they need to do is deal with an issue in the landscape that's already been contracted for that we should have been on top of. So, I mean, that's why, proactivity is so big. And, you know, I think the other thing that we talked about is, right, being their eyes and ears. So, like we said, they're not, on site as much as I'm sure a lot of them would like to be, but we are on site, right? During the mowing season, we're there on a weekly basis. Our account managers should be there at least on a monthly basis, if not more. So we're their eyes and ears, and not just for the landscaping. We feel like building, a good relationship should extend beyond the landscaping. So if we see something that's wrong on the property, we should be letting them know. And like a great example is we have an account manager, right, that uh, has let like at an apartment complex has seen the same abandoned car on site like two
Wow.
times, right? like she'll flag it and send it to the property manager and be like, hey, you should consider taking care of this, right? And that's like that above and beyond proactivity that we feel like makes a huge difference for clients. It's that we're not just helping them solve the landscaping piece, we're actually now able to take it and help them beyond that.
Makes sense. And I guess that's where it turns into a partnership that she was talking about on our last webinar.
Yeah, I think so, right? Because then our value add is so much more than just mowing the grass.
100%. So, um, uh, what does um, what does a typical day in the life of an account manager looks like? I asked that because, you got 1,200 properties.
Yeah.
There are like, I guess 10 of them. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think we have but a few more but yeah, I mean they manage, on the low end they're managing 30 to 40 properties. On the high end, some of our like DC property managers where, job size is smaller are managing close to 100 jobs. So it's a lot. And you know, the day in the life of an account manager, probably a lot like a property manager is very varied. But the one thing we are really firm on is that you need to be out in the field. You're not going to be good at the account manager job sitting behind a desk and just answering emails. Like we talked about, the value add, right, is the proactivity and the eyes, the kind of further information we can give our clients. So our thing is account managers should be in the field 50% of the time. So if they're spending, a 10-hour day, they should be there 4 to 5 hours a day. And that's a lot of time, out on a site. Um, and so I think that's where kind of Plato and SiteRecon comes in, right? And, you know, you're walking around, you're taking notes, you're kind of making points about a property. You need something to stay organized and to stay efficient. And that's what we find with, that's kind of why we brought in Plato to help systemize that. But I mean, you brought it up. Yeah, I mean, they are, like we said, they're on site, so they should be doing quality audit reports or the site quality audits that we have with you all. Hopefully, we're setting up meetings with property managers. We feel like in-person meetings are hugely beneficial, but if we can't meet in person, if you're on site, you should at least be giving the client a call or trying to reach out to them to let them know that you're on site and to talk through things. Yeah, and then once they're on site, they need to be kind of taking in. So there's kind of the two ends, right? You're finding enhancement opportunities so we can do the upsell because that's the one kind of side of the account management position, and then the other side of that is the quality control piece. So you're noting maintenance issues, stuff that maybe our crews missed or need to make sure they pay attention to on that next visit, creating a list of those things to make sure that we send it, that gets communicated to the field staff on the next visit.
Got you. And so before these standardizations came into play, what were some of the challenges that you guys were running into?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a couple things. I talked about the two pieces. So on the quality side, before we were using kind of um, Plato and SiteRecon, the communication stream from account manager to the crew leader who's actually doing the work was convoluted, and things got missed a lot because basically what would happen is you would take, the account manager would go out, create a punch list of things that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Um, and photos, and then would either text those photos. We have our system is we have account managers who are just doing client relations work, and then we have operations managers who are managing the crew leaders and the field stuff. So the chain would be, account manager would create a punch list and pictures, send it to the operations manager. The operations manager would then need to take that list, whether it's an email or a text, and then translate that into something that could go out into the field and be usable by the crews there. Um, and hopefully they remembered on that next visit to give it to them that day, right? Hopefully they remembered to print it out. Hopefully those notes actually made sense to the crew leader and like gave enough context that they were able to fix it. So that was a huge issue. And then on the client side, right? I think just giving, clients the information they need for enhancements is hard. And we found it was especially hard on large properties. Going back to this idea of like property managers being busier than they ever have been. If you're a property manager and you have 20 jobs, right? And we send you a picture and say, hey, there's this dead tree in the northwest corner of, your whatever shopping center, or let's say we're on a giant HOA, right? And you're like, there's a
Yeah.
dead tree in between, 121 and 122 Rose Street. Like, there's no context to that. There's no like, it's very hard to even picture where that is. They may have never even seen that part of the property before. They're going, what? And they're trying to geolocate it in their mind. So we found that like it was just harder to communicate with them and they were spending time kind of processing the notes and stuff we were sending them.
Understood. Um, and so uh, I guess the motivation was how do we how do we bring someone, all of them together, like internally, production managers, crews, customers outside, all of them on the same sort of the same page.
Yeah, exactly. How do we bring everything together and how do we create a system where account managers can easily kind of in one place, in one fell swoop when they're out there, right, create both of these, items for their customers and the operations team. And those are kind of two, separate channels, but are going to be done together. Because if you're going to a property, right, you're not, they're not going first through and just looking at enhancements and then going back and looking for quality issues, right? They're doing both at the same time. So it's how can we create a system and a stream where we're able to easily capture that data and easily send it off to the appropriate places without a lot of friction, without a lot of typing, without a lot of rework.
Makes sense. And at the time, had you like tried to do it in, but I think you were using Inspire since then and even before that.
Yeah, we have been using Aspire on the Aspire platform for a while. We tried their quality audits, and yeah, we just had issues. The biggest thing was the mobile capabilities of their system, especially at the time, but I think still now to some extent are just lacking, right? We needed something that would work offline, but also, just be super intuitive and functional on your phone. Our some of our account managers are not the most technologically savvy, so they're going to get frustrated, right, if you're having them log in on a web page, try and log in on a non-optimized web page, try and add things, type things into text boxes that aren't sized right. Like it just uh, didn't really work. We created an internal app for some quality audits, but that, the forms didn't feel professional enough to us really to send to customers. So they were kind of good for field type stuff, internal communication, a bit, but didn't have the geolocation piece. Wasn't really bringing it all together. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, with some of these technologies, the just the ease of implementation ends up being the biggest reason why um, one solution sort of sticks and others just harder to stick.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it, but right, like friction on rollout, right, is the biggest stumbling block we find.
Yeah. So talk to us about your implementation process. Not just, I mean, it's an insight, generally speaking, when it comes to implementing technologies at Level Green. This is just an instance where it played out a specific
Sure.
way.
Yeah, I mean, we try and, first try and get a lot of feedback before we roll out a technology, or at least give a heads up that it's coming, and try and get buy-in, at least from the management team, so like branch managers on up, right? Because in kind of the way our company is set up, the branch managers, right, are have a lot of autonomy and responsibility for their branches and their business units. So like we need their buy-in because it's going to be on them to hold their teams accountable. We're not, kind of on a corporate level, gonna bypass them. So that's kind of the first step for us is getting that buy-in, getting that feedback, making sure everybody's on board or at least comfortable with it. So it's usually, a several month process before we're rolling out any new technology, kind of keeping everybody up to speed. Um, do a lot of trainings, whether that's right before kickoff or right after kickoff. We try and, my thought process is try and be, go overboard in terms of the trainings. I found there is no amount though that is overboard because you'll train, right? And then the next week you'll have a question that, someone will ask a question, right? That was the first thing mentioned in the training, right? So we try and though, have a ton of forums for training and questions and follow up in the first few months. The other thing that we've gone to or that I've kind of tried to go to is doing trainings, doing live training so that we can make sure everybody's doing it, make sure they're live and present for it, like we are here now. But also then doing some recorded training so that people can go back and look at things, as they need immediately, to kind of have that. So kind of have both pieces there. Yeah, and then the other thing though that we've done and try and do with rollouts is we do try and have like champions for us, and we do find that we have some younger members of our team, especially with our Plato rollout, but generally who just understand it, get it, and are much quicker with it. So we try and have them adopt and use it early, and we can kind of use their successes as a case for why everybody should get on board. Right? If we can show that this is being done already, this is not that big of a deal. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of compel others to do it. And then we definitely try and highlight, big successes in it. So, you have like listed there, but we have for Plato, we have an account manager who actually is not one of the younger sets. She's actually one of our older account managers, right? But like immediately gravitated to the system, understood the power of it, like immediately, and was just using it all over the place and had, was hugely successful with it in terms of upselling clients and using it to sell some big jobs and also just, on the quality side. And so we've definitely kind of pointed to her as an example of like, this is what you can achieve. And you have a list of Mary Ellen there, like, this is what you can achieve with it. But also, Mary Ellen shows like, there's really no excuse, right? Even for our less technologically savvy ones. It's just a matter of jumping in with both feet.
100%. We found with this tool specifically, and some others as well, there's a personality thing. Folks who want to be like more organized or just have like
Yeah.
one list chaos, and they don't have a way to get there. And when they find that, it sticks because like it was a problem looking for a solution.
Right. No, exactly. And that's exactly Mary Ellen is incredibly organized, like to an extent that I could never fathom, right? She's also super competitive. She's like our best salesperson. So I think those two factors, right? She saw how this can help her sell a lot more, right? And then yeah, and then it fits with her personality. Made it like, yeah, a no-brainer for her. Which means your less organized people, right, aren't going to see, aren't immediately gonna gravitate to it. But I think you can. But you can, I think the way to challenge that, right, is this is a tool to help you organize yourself, like a super easy way, low lift to help organize yourself.
What were some of the, let's say, concerns, feedback, pushback that you got over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big, and this isn't just with SiteRecon, I think generally one of the issues we've had with software is we're a pull organization, not a push organization, just like generally in terms of our management style, in terms of like we're gonna try and pull people to where we want to be, but we're pretty hesitant to push people. And I think that part of that comes from we have kind of an entrepreneurial streak in the company, and an independent streak. We really do want to let our account managers do their job the way that they want to do it. We have a lot of super experienced account managers who have been doing this for a while, and do a really good job, right? So the hard part is getting some people there if you're not willing to push them. And how do we do that? And we're still, I mean, to be completely frank with you, even on the Plato roll and otherwise we're still working on figuring that part out. Because we are more, I guess the other um kind of metaphor I would say is like we like to incentivize people to do things, but we don't like to punish them if they don't. And so, that's kind of been hard, and it means getting to 100% adoption on some of these things has been a little bit more difficult. But I think patience is important there. And then also like really listening to them, and listening to the people that maybe aren't immediately adopting it. Like what's the problem? What's stopping you from it? To give an example with Plato, one of the things we learned is like we had account managers, right, who had like iPhone SEs, right? And we quickly realized like we're not giving them the right tools to fully utilize this system, right? Tiny screen, right, where they're going to
Mm.
have trouble typing, trouble looking at a map, right, is not going to work. So we've like upgraded all of our account managers' phones to, to have I guess it's the Maxes or whatever, right, with the giant screens now so that they can see it. And we would give them um, iPads if they wanted them. They tend to not use them. They tend to prefer just having their phone, right, as kind of the sole source. But like that's one example of like talking to them, figuring out what's not working and why they're against it. And being sympathetic and really hearing them out, I think plays a big part in it.
Very cool. Um, so you were rolling this out, and uh, what did you ask your guys to document on site? Did you like come up with a list of things, or this is what we'll do, this is what we'll do in spring versus summer versus fall? Is that how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another kind of thing that we've learned right on rollout is that with any new software, right, there's a lot of trial and error. And I think we had a lot of trial and error, starting out with you guys. We started out with the quality audit format, which allows for the ratings and stuff. And we kind of took questions that we had um, on our old quality audit and like move that over to the SiteRecon one. And I think what we were getting was good, but the information, the feedback we got after a few months was, clients really, weren't as interested in receiving. And when we started, we were really focusing on like let's send these to clients. Let's have this help us with client communications. And kind of the feedback we got was clients were they liked receiving them, but they felt like it was missing a piece of like actionable information, right? Like what does a 5 mean to a client, right? Or if they get a report that says their turf's a 5, maybe they look at it and say, oh, that's good. But for the most part, again, we talked about how busy they are. They're probably doing a really quick look at that, and then it's not super actionable or meaningful for them. So one of the quick switches we did with you all was like we switched to the site quality audits as like our primary form of capturing information. And I'm sure you'll go over that in further detail, but that allows for like really specific items to be sent to clients on like geolocated with pictures of the problem. And so we're not like telling them, oh, your turf quality is good. It's like, no, you have a tree branch down here. We should do an enhancement here. We have a drainage issue here. So it's giving them a really distilled, like, these are the most important things on your site today that we're sending you instead of kind of a general, this is the like current quality of your site. So that's kind of where we've gone to. So it means that the account managers have a lot of flexibility in terms of what they're detailing and documenting. Um, we have started now, like, and I would highly recommend if you are rolling this out to make this part of it. But like in the sales process, we've kind of started saying like any new job that we're selling, we should do an initial audit on that property. Um, because we are 100% selling on the Plato and SiteRecon platform. Like we're saying we have, this platform and you're going to be receiving these reports. So it makes 100% to send a potential or prospective new client, right? A customized report of their current property so that they can see what they would be receiving. But it also does give us, an initial basis of like this was kind of the condition or quality of the property at the start. Um, so I mean That's kind of the big thing. We do, though, I think kind of what your question was or alluding to, we do have multiple formats in the system for you all. So we do have like a spring quality audit that we use. And that allows our account managers to just say, how is our quality on mulching, spring cleanup, and edging? Are we where we need to be? Especially I think it's good to do a quick quality audit there in the spring just because we haven't been on site for a couple of months, right? Things over the winter could have deteriorated a little bit. Let's make sure we're up to snuff there.
And
The
that's
other one that
internal.
we're, oh, sorry.
That one's internal. Like you do that for internal.
Yeah, we do that internal. Yeah, that one generally does not get sent to the clients unless the account manager decides that they want to. But that's more an internal check for us.
Got you. Please
Um,
go on. Moving on to the next.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then the other one that we started using this year that we're like super excited about and worked really well and is we do a lot of snow removal. We have, probably close to 1,000 snow removal jobs that we work on. And before we had always required, right, preseason snow removal, um, audits or I don't know but basically what we're looking for is pre-existing. The big thing we're looking for is pre-existing damage, right? Because I think anybody that's involved in the snow removal business knows there's a lot of liability involved in it, and you do tend to damage things when it snows, right? A plow truck, right, can't stop in time. Can run over a speed bump, can crack a curb, right? There's just a lot of potential damage. But we need to document all the pre-existing damage, right? So we're not being held liable for something that happened 3 years ago that's already there. Um, and before we were literally just taking pictures on a property and then saving them like in a folder somewhere, right? I mean, we had the information right, but it was not organized in a good way, right? Hopefully we could find it at the end of the season. Hopefully you could go through those pictures and say, yeah, this is the same area. Switching over to Plato was like a no-brainer on that, right? And it's been such a huge improvement because every picture is geolocated. So it's so easy, right? If you do have damage, right, you can easily go back and see whether anything was marked there or not. And it's super easy because when we're doing that, right, we're walking out in the field. So, the fact that we can just take our phones with us and document everything as we go for that, just makes that process frictionless.
Got you. Is that something that the clients have also asked for? Because on the snow side, it's just like a contractual, like everybody's very serious about contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably start. We send it to some clients and not others. We'll probably start standardizing it, especially now that, last year was kind of right our first test year with you, but now that we kind of know the process and have a document that's going to be pre-populated and created that looks really professional, looks good, is fine to share. I think it's probably a no-brainer to share it with them. Again, that's another like proactivity thing, right? You send it to them, right? And you're probably cataloging damage that they did not even know existed on their site.
Makes sense. And then talking about things, changing from year one to year two, are there other things that you sort of have realized first couple of years of working through it, like this is what you want to do this year, or seed planting for some stuff that you will do this year?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think, we kind of made a push to kind of really measure the amount of reports that were going out last year. And again, with some of the implementation stuff, we realized we needed to take a step back, make sure we really understood what we were doing and asking people and kind of get more buy-in before like measuring and kind of having it be part of our account manager's KPIs. I see this as something that we'll likely start implementing as kind of part of our KPI process this year. Um, then I think we're gonna create more forms. I mean that's one of the really cool things about the app that you guys have created is that it allows for a ton of customization on what you want, right? So you can, create these templates for forms, right, that are unique to you and to kind of your company needs. So I think we'll continue creating new ones as we kind of have ideas throughout the year on areas that we want to document and save.
Got you. Um, And then all these insights coming in for you guys, have as a branch manager, has anything changed for them, like before and after, knowing what their guys are doing in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives us a better, it gives us a better read of kind of output in the field, right? We can see live, right, what reports are coming in from account managers on jobs. So it kind of verifies that they are spending that 50% of the time in the field. So it's kind of a nice check on that part of it. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, as they see reports coming through to them, I think it gives them another layer or insight into kind of the overall operation of the company. And specifically, I think on the quality side, an issue that we're working to fix or working on, right? But our branch managers are very similar to the property managers in that they have so much admin that they're responsible for that at times it can be very hard for them to get out in the field. Um, because they are, responsible for kind of so much desk work. So this site recon reports do give them a way and an insight to kind of quickly see issues and quality issues that are coming in from being reported in the field from account managers flowing to operations managers and get quick reads on that, right? And if they can see, and they can also, see and address patterns potentially, right? If you get, three reports in from different account managers that are all saying, right, that we're doing a bad job edging or something, like then we can know, right? That's probably like a branch-wide issue, right? Or maybe a company-wide issue that we need to address, not just like a one-off thing.
An issue that can sort of get addressed through training.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. And then, um, what about your production guys? Anything changed for them, production managers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have not like strictly utilized the crew ranking system. I think it's something that we're looking at going into, this year and next. We have a lot of measurements on efficiency and do rank and measure crews on efficiency, but we don't really have a good way to measure, or right now are not having a good way to measure on quality. So this, I think the site recon, this piece could help us kind of be the counterweight to that, right? And kind of provide some context to the quality to the efficiency part, I'm sorry, to make sure that we're achieving efficiency and quality at the same time. I would say the big thing is it's made, I think the account managers, for kind of how we are currently set up, it's made our operations managers' lives a lot easier. Because again, they were kind of having to facilitate and remember all of these different notes that were coming in on what their crews were supposed to be doing. They were having to figure out how to communicate that. Now we can print out a report, give it to the crew and potentially print it out, right? Or just send the PDF, give it to the crew, right? And they have a full list. They can have a easy punch list of stuff they need to do with map locations on that property. So it becomes super easy. There's no explanation needed of like where you need to go, what you need to do. It's all there. Um, and then you guys have taken it a step further. We don't always use it, but like it is awesome is, our crew leaders can have access, right, to the site, to the Plato app. And we could even tag them, right, in things if we wanted to have them do things, or we can tag operations managers in notes and reports so that they're automatically notified when something pops up.
Hmm. Got you. Um, Wanted to turn up some reports here for everyone to see because you've been talking about them for a while and wanted to make it sort of tangible for everyone.
Yes.
So that's the site audit report Marion was talking about. Starts with a map and a cover letter for the property manager. Goes into, so this is what you were talking about, Marion, like categorizing maintenance issues, um, enhancement items, safety issues as separate buckets that the client can just very quickly look at. and then goes into detail on each one of them. I think when you started sending these over to your customers, what's the reaction that you got from them?
Yeah, I mean, our customers love them. And most of them that, receive them regularly now kind of demand them. um, which is a good thing, or certainly have come to expect them. But yeah, I mean, it's super positive. I mean, I think we feel like for customers, the biggest lift for them is on the enhancements side. It really helps them visualize what we're talking about and trying to do, right? When we can send the picture and location and description, it becomes super clear. And then especially like, for a lot of enhancements, right? If we send them four enhancements at once, like that's a lot, like four proposals at once, that's a lot to like read through and digest. Whereas if we can give them this report with those four enhancements listed and it's like, oh, that's what this is, that's what, and it kind of succinctly puts it, then like the proposals are really just like they're just signing off on those, right? They're just looking at the bottom line number and signing, right? It's not they're having to really go through and understand it. So we think it translates things much easier. We like though, like we do send the clients when we're sending an SQA, we send them all the maintenance items that were listed, even though those are mostly right for our operations crews to fix. It's part of that proactivity thing where it's like we know these issues exist on our site, right? And we're actively taking care of them. And I think that just solves the issue of like if they, if they came on site, 2 days after receiving this, if they hadn't gotten that right, they would be calling the account manager and saying, you guys messed up. Like, when are we fixing this? Versus if we've already sent them and say, we know this is a problem, we'll be there on the next visit to fix it, right? They're going to be, they're probably not even going to notice it. Or if they do, they're going to know that it's going to be taken care of. So yeah, I will say like, so going back to the enhancement thing, there's so many use cases for it, one of the big enhancements that we felt like we were able to sell with this that we wouldn't have been before is like dead tree replacements, right? Like we have giant sites where we're replacing 100 trees at once. If you just send a proposal to a client saying, I'm going to replace 100 trees, like
They're gonna freak.
well, yeah, and to sell that, like you're gonna have to go on a property walk with them. You're gonna have to flag every tree. Like you're gonna have to show them every tree, put a flag around it so that they know that we have the right trees marked. Like you're gonna have to do all of that versus like if we can send them a report that just says, here's the 100 trees that we feel like need to be replaced. Here's pictures of them. They're probably going to look at the first 10 pictures of dead trees and be like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of dead trees on this site. And then feel super comfortable that we've done our due diligence. We have a really detailed map that shows all the dead trees, has pictures of all of them. Like it just simplifies the process so much on that. And then like the other piece that I know I talked to you about is like we found huge help on the enhancement
Projects.
production side from these reports, right? Because before, we have an enhancement manager that manages three or four enhancement crews, so they're not able to go out to every project, right, that's being launched or that's being done. If we have really good, like detailed report, that probably got sent to the client to sell the project, but like it also really helps the enhancement team know like what they're supposed to do, right? Because they'll have again a spot on a map where everything's supposed to be planted. They may have, you can show there, right? Like we can make notes on the pictures. We can even do mock-ups of a design that needs to be submitted. Like it creates like a really easy plan for our enhancement crews to follow. Whereas before, right, if the enhancement manager wasn't going to be there and it's just the crew lead, right, it would mean the account manager had to be on site to support them and tell them what needed to happen, right? Or we needed to make sure we had really good notes written in Aspire beforehand and they knew everything that needed to happen. Whereas now, again, we can have like one source where it's going to the client and it's going to our ops team. And, it's just that one entry instead of kind of doing a lot of double work and a lot of miscommunication.
Very cool. And then in that case, is the how do these it's also a question that someone just asked. How do these reports actually find their way to the crew? Like you just print out and share?
Yeah, I mean, we do print out more than as the tech guy, more than I would like to admit, but there's like a ton of ways you can share them. So, I mean, they're downloadable, right? So the other way is you can just share the PDF with your crew. You can text it to them. Or, if your crews have email, you can email it to them. Again, your crews also can have access to the Plato app, right? They can be kind of users on the app. And so that's another easy way. And you can even tag them in it, right? So it automatically shows up. We haven't gotten to that level, and that's another thing that we may look at, kind of going to in the future. But for right now, it's mostly either printing it out or hopefully texting it or sharing it with them, on their phones.
Got you. One thing we've always recommended is you take that PDF, if you use a production software that is being used to clock in,
Yep.
clock out in the field, just upload that file in there
Yep.
and that
Yeah,
then opens.
exactly. Yep.
So that was Rick's question. Rick, I hope that got answered. Joel is asking, what is the site audit cadence that you require your account managers to perform? Meaning, is each account manager required to do a site audit every month or once a quarter?
Yeah, so that Joel, that was one of like the bigger questions that we had, and at first we were gonna be going and be like, every site needed to have a site audit once a month. But that is a big lift, right? And again, we have some account managers that have 100 sites, so that would be a lot of reports, a lot, probably too much, honestly, for them to do. We kind of ended up going to like a tiered structure for kind of how we wanted to think about site audits. So, we have our kind of premier sites, right, where the property manager is on site all the time, expects the property to look amazing, and they expect us to be on site all the time, right? So, it's kind of determined by that cadence. Then we have our kind of mid-tier properties where our account manager probably needs to visit once a month, right? And then frankly, we have a few. We don't have a ton, but we have some properties, right, that are just kind of more mow, blow and go type sites where, they're slated for redevelopment or whatever, and we're just kind of there mowing the grass. And like, we probably don't need account manager visiting those once a month even, and the property manager probably never goes there. So we've created kind of a tiered structure where it's like, okay, our high-end properties, you need to do it like maybe it's once a week, maybe it's every other week or once a month, but like that's the cadence for it. I think our mid-tier properties, we say like you should do it once a quarter, right? So like once a season, basically. And then, for kind of properties that are, kind of our lowest touch, it's like let's send to a year or so. And like our feeling on that was, for all of those, it's just increasing our communication with our clients. This is not in place of the communication that we were having. This is above and beyond kind of going that next step. And frankly, I'm sure you all have this if you work in the commercial space. We have clients where it's very hard to get responses from them, right? They are super busy, right? They don't tend to respond to our emails, right? Because they have other things. It's not their top priority. Landscaping isn't on their mind. So we felt like this was a way to make sure that we could reach them with something of value to actually provide something of value instead of an email that just says, hey, checking in, is everything okay? It's like, hey, here's a quality audit report, right, of your site. Here's what I'm seeing when I'm out there. And then if they come back to us and say, well, you haven't done anything for us too, we also have backup then at that point of like, well, we've been on your site a couple of times. We actually have sent you, proposals to do stuff to improve things. We have taken care of these issues. So I think that's kind of our thinking on that cadence idea.
Hope that helps, Joel. Marion, there's a question from an anonymous attendee. He's saying, how long do account managers usually spend per site to do the quality control? It was mentioned that usually managers have multiple locations in the hundreds. So if you can clarify like the number of account managers, that might help as well.
Yeah, so I mean the most of our account managers do not have 100 sites. Again, there's a few that are tend to be in our city branch, our Washington D.C. branch, where sites are smaller and obviously we're also a lot closer to each other. Um, But I mean that really varies, right? Because we do some, $100,000 plus HOAs, right? Where there's, 50 acres to cover. So you're probably on to do a good quality audit, you're on site for hour plus, just to walk the whole site. Easy. I would say the average is, I think to do a good site audit, you need to walk the whole site. So you're probably talking to 30 minutes at least for kind of your average commercial, right? Retail office building HOA, 15, 30 minutes probably is minimum.
Yeah, and it's not necessary that you walk around the whole thing. You can actually drive as well, and you can get down
Right.
and you can like and then come back in. And I
And
yeah,
and
because
yeah, I mean that's the reason we love SiteRecon is just it makes it right. Like you can close the app, come back to it, and easily start taking notes again, right? You can it shows it geolocates where you are on a map, right? So it's super easy to place the pin where you need it to. It just, instead of, again, kind of manually or doing it, it just makes things so much easier to kind of record everything. And you can take it seamlessly works with photos, like taking pictures from your phone and stuff. It's really nice.
one question that was going through my mind is, yeah, is size a factor here? Like, I mean, we are talking about so many properties, so many account managers. What if like when does someone ha it makes sense to start using this?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think size is a factor here. I think whether you're a one-man operation, right, client communication is still key, right? And this is part of that. Now, if you're smaller, you may be able to be a little bit more, hands-on with your clients. So maybe you feel like that this isn't needed. But again, I say this is just to augment that, to really take your communication to the next level. So however good you are now, you can be that much better if you kind of start using this. It really will just make it easier for you and for your clients.
I guess we already talked about it. I want to go through this
Yeah, I mean, the
quickly.
one thing I'll say on that, and this, you did not tell me to say this, you did not pay me to say this, but like your support team is awesome. Our account manager for SiteRecon is Akshay, and like he is, I mean, seriously, out of all the tech companies we work with, he's the best. He'll answer any question, usually within like an hour or so. Calls out of the blue, it's just their support team is awesome. And yeah, 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 it's not difficult to set up, and they'll be holding your hand the whole way and make you feel really good about it.
Yeah, I mean, Akshay, kudos to him. He's very patient.
Yes,
And that
yes, he is. Yes, because he gets a lot of stupid questions from me and our team on tech issues and stuff that have nothing to do with you guys, but have just user error, and he's always happy to help.
yeah, kudos to him. So budget-wise, if someone had to think about it, how should they think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a slide, you may have a slide or something there, but there's an ROI on this that we feel like, to some extent, yeah, it kind of pays for itself, especially if you're really using it, if you are really using it for client community, like for enhancement sales and stuff like that, it will it will pay for itself. Like it's not a hard calculation here, especially you have the costs kind of listed there. For us to sell our average enhancement right is, $2,000 or something around there, right? So like literally if we just sell one enhancement and one extra enhancement a month because we're sending these reports to clients, right? Like even if we just sent, honestly, if we sold one more enhancement a year because we sent these reports per account manager, the software is paid for itself. So I mean as long as you're using it and kind of clients are buying into it, there's a pretty easy ROI to figure out on it.
I wanna before we're almost at the mark here, guys. Marian, if you allow me, I wanna
Yeah.
just launch a poll here and make sure if anyone is interested in actually checking out the app or looking at all the different forms or templates that you can set up, like the snow inspection one, the one on spring, quality audits, enhancements, down to show you guys how all of that is set up. And uh, all right, let's keep rolling this forward. Um, so, Marion, some of the other guys who have used it, they've had similar results. Um, and only $100 a month, like you said, it pays for itself very easily. So you can start with that. And of course, as you add users, as you add more functionalities, the ROI keeps going up. Um, I have John Orona here raising his hand. John, can you drop your question here in chat and I'll take that up. I see your hand. Would love to answer any questions you have. I think I still have like a few questions that I, I never got to asking. Oh, here's the question. I think John just dropped it. Oh, he's saying he tapped that by mistake. That's all right. Um, so okay, yeah. So we were talking about enhancements earlier, and you mentioned um something that when because let's say we are in 2025, the budget is already, and so what is um how do you work through that? You're sending these enhancement requests, the budget's logged in. How does that play out?
Yeah, so I think so we go through a process that we call a budget worksheet. And we try and send these budget worksheets to our customers, usually in the summer, because our commercial customers are kind of do their budgeting process for the next year. Um, they do their budgeting process for the next year, kind of in the summer to early fall to get that locked in. So what we do is we send them. It's a pretty simple like worksheet spreadsheet that lists kind of our budgeted or recommended budgeted landscape expenses for them. So as a line item that'll have landscape maintenance and it'll be whatever the landscape maintenance cost is that we're proposing for them for the next year. And then it has a lot of budgeted enhancements or other things. So, if they're doing hand watering, we'll have like the budgeted amount they should have for hand watering in the summer, right? But then we also list out all the enhancements that we want them to budget for. And the reason our thinking behind that is we need to get our enhancements budgeted for next year, this year, if that makes sense. Or like they need to have that in their budget, the enhancements for next year, this year. So we have to kind of tell them what they're going to need next year, this year, which is hard, right, in the landscape because there's a lot of it's right, it's a living thing, right? There's a lot of changes, but we can kind of know like, oh, you should budget, $1,000 for replacement shrubs. But then we can also put in bigger things there. Like we should redo your patio space to make it nicer, or we should redo your front entrance, or you have a large, irrigation repair that we didn't do this year, but we should upgrade your controller next year. So we can put all these things in a budget spreadsheet. And what we tend to do is we go overboard, to be completely honest with you. Like we'll put a ton of stuff in there, but what we tell our clients is like this is an a la carte menu. You can pick and choose what you do and don't want to budget for. But the thought behind that is at then they're not when they're finalizing their landscape budget for next year, they're not just putting in base maintenance as their landscape budget, right? Because if they're putting in $25,000, their base maintenance amount is their landscape budget, guess what? They're not going to have any money for enhancements and upsells. And I think anybody who's in the commercial landscape maintenance space knows all of our money, like the real profit is made off, right, of enhancements. So like we need to make sure they're budgeting a significant amount for enhancements so that we can make some money on it. So that's what we do. And what we've started to do kind of to bring Plato into this is, we'll have that kind of worksheet and then we'll have, a Plato report that goes along with it that kind of shows all those items that we've talked about. Again, we can have pictures, kind of backup and more notes there to kind of flesh out exactly what we're talking about in that budget worksheet.
Makes sense. And then the time to do this would be sometime around July, August, when they're just budgeting for.
Yeah, I mean it's like Honestly, it's almost never too early. But yeah, I mean, your commercial office tend to be the first ones to budget, and they're like finalizing their budgets by August. So you need to get it in before then. And then kind of your HOAs and apartments tend to be a little bit later. But yeah, you need to start thinking about it in the summer because, if you submit your budget worksheet in December, guess what? Their budget's already finalized and you're too late.
Right. So I think the right way to approach it is like have an inventory of enhancements on every property that you're operating on, and then like just keep sending that across, and have that, a la carte, the cart sort of ready.
Right. And they're not going to do everything probably on the budget worksheet. And especially if you want to sell big projects, you want to sell, a full landscape remodel of the property, right? They're not going to do that unless you're telling them to think about that. And they're probably not going to do it the first year that you send it to them, but they'll start thinking about it that year. And then the second or third year that they see it on that budget worksheet, and now we've talked to them for 3 years about it. And maybe they've said, oh, well, we can budget 50,000 one year and 50,000 the other year or something. Like that's how you're going to get those really large scale projects done.
Got you. One bite at a time.
Yep.
Love it. Um, there's a question that's come in here. I think you did cover it earlier. I actually had this question that's slightly different. All this data that's sort of collecting inside SiteRecon and Plato, that's information on the site conditions, enhancements, etc., etc. Um, uh, it does it bother you that it does not like directly flow into your production software? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, in an ideal world, the honest answer is it would be great, right, if everything synced and talked to each other. But that's not the reality of kind of the systems that we're working in. So, you know, I guess, yeah, it bothers me a little bit, but we feel like independent of that, these systems are worthwhile on their own. And they're kind of easy workarounds to that. And then the other thing too is like, you know, ideally, right, there'd be one system that kind of did everything for us. But if we're going to have multiple systems, we want the user experience to be really friendly and easy to pick up. And so that's kind of the other thing. And with SiteRecon, we've found that. Yeah.
Got you. Leonardo, I hope that answers your question. Marion did answer what's the exact difference between SiteRecon and Aspire for this specific use case earlier in the webinar. The ease of use being the main idea here. That sort of helps drive implementation. Um, I think that's about it. Um, Marion, thank you so much, man. This was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
this is awesome. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys listening to me for an hour. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. See you next time. Bye.